Well, ladies and gentlemen of the Tech on Deck world, we have a very unique guest today. We have Michael Webb, who is joining us. He is Vice President of Permitting Technologies at ProMiles. For those of you that don't know who ProMiles is, they have a variety of technologies for the transportation industry. They are everything from oversized, overweight, which is Michael Webb's purview, his specialty, all the way to GPS routing software and a variety of other pieces of software for the transportation industry. So today we're going to dive into the story behind Michael Webb, how he came to ProMiles and came to be one of the big movers and shakers in our industry, and even dive into the technology a little bit. So you'll be joining Dan Shipley, the co-host, and myself, Daniel Kinsman, the host of Tech on Deck. This show is brought to you by Flatbed Safety Securement Group. You can find us on Facebook at FSSG, Flatbed Safety Securement Group, and you can also find us at flatbed-safety.com. Okay, Michael Webb, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me today. It's certainly a pleasure to spend some time with you and getting to know you guys. I've been with ProMiles for 21 years now. I've been in the oversized, overweight, regulatory compliance side of business for about 30 years now. Starting with ProMiles in 2004, I was hired as VP of Government Affairs to assist ownership in knocking on state DOT doors, trying to get their interest and allowing us to build the next generation of state oversized, overweight permitting and routing automation solutions. Fast forward 15 years, we had achieved about 15 contracts by that time. And I had a dream that we could take that technology and utilize it to develop commercial products for the industry to assist in automating the day-to-day permit ordering, quoting loads, and coming out later this year, in-cab navigation for oversized, overweight movement.
Wow, that'll be really good to have the NCAB navigation. Now, have you been able to partner with any OEMs to have your software on any of the integrated infotainment screens?
We just recently partnered with Platform Science. We are now in their marketplace. eCredentials was the first product that's available. That allows you to store all your driver qualifications, equipment information, permits, RP, cab cards, etc., in a digital format that has a back office that allows you to manage those documents or credentials for each of your drivers, and allows them to present them or email them to the law enforcement at the weigh stations.
Wow, that's a good piece of technology.
We're excited about it. We're just really starting to push on releasing it, and got some very good traction going right now. I think it's going to be another value add to our suite of services.
Now, just out of curiosity, what amount of work did it take for you to get Wyoming?
You know, we were knocking on Wyoming's door back when the earlier years when I was involved with our state team, and through several years, several visits to Wyoming, we finally were fortunate enough that they agreed that they would like to go with our solution, and they put the RFP out, and we were fortunate enough to be awarded that RFP, but it took years, much like many of the other state projects we've been involved in. Started knocking on those doors a long time ago, and some of them are still coming to fruition as we speak that we were knocking on in the early days.
Well, it was greatly needed and greatly appreciated from all of us that do oversize.
We're very excited. That was always a kind of a bottleneck going to Wyoming and having to deal with port of entries and getting the pre-clearances coming in, and it's had to be a lot of hassle in the industry as you were permitting through Wyoming back in those days.
It it really was. So for me personally, I work for a company that we specialize in oversized and super loads. So for about from May 1st until the last week of September 2023, all I did was a dedicated route pulling 16 wide buildings at
Wow.
195,000 pounds, Wisconsin to Washington State. Every load took us through Wyoming, and having to get all the pre-clearances every single trip to get a route that would take us to a port of entry, and then get the actual paper permit. Sometimes we were all the way through the state coming into the port of entry to leave the state, and that's where we'd pull in and actually pay for our permit.
Wow.
So having it where we can now do it online and have everything paid for up front has been a huge help for the industry, bringing them into more of a modern standing with the rest of the country.
That's great to hear.
And it like I said, it has been appreciated. I have a lot of drivers that do oversize it. As soon as they found out that you were going to be on the show, they're like, "Hey, make sure he knows this is appreciated."
That's
So now
great to
we'll
hear.
go.
We've got a wonderful team at ProMiles, and I'm sure every one of them will be
Oh
extremely
yeah,
happy as well.
I mean, you could tell them all. I mean, a lot of drivers that go through Wyoming would buy them a cup of coffee because of the work they've done. So, uh, can you explain for the audience what the Unified or Uniform Permit Transport 2021 initiative is?
Yes, by all means. I had the privilege of working with SCNRA and some consultants they had back in probably 2020 that was started was put together actually, and I was able to provide automation solutions that we'd successfully implemented with the state agencies that we had at that time. Texas TexPro's system was one of our first uh, oversized overweight launches, and it really transcended the way that permitting and routing systems have been developed since then. By utilizing that and the automation efforts that SCNRA was striving for their members, we had the ability to showcase some of our developments in automation efforts that we had gone through with the state agencies to allow for up to envelope sizes in each jurisdiction that the range varies what that jurisdiction is going to allow for auto issue. I'm sure you've seen that as you've applied for permits in the past. In Texas, you can get 254,000. You can get, I think it's almost 18 high, if not 18 high. And can't remember the width, but the width is pretty enormous out there for self issue. So the goal with SCNRA and the UP21 was to try to, get a more balanced issuance for the overdimensional permits in the size and weights that those states would self-issue 24/7 without having to go to review. So that number's getting bigger and bigger with each year that goes by, and as states get more comfortable with automation and increasing those values. Obviously, you come into scenarios where the weights are impacted, and you've got to go through bridge analysis and other engineering aspects of the state agencies. So, I hope in the future, ProMiles does be or develop and maintain the AstroWare BRDR. That is the bridge analysis software that's used by the majority of the U.S. states and some of the Canadian as well as local. But that bridge analysis software is, as I said, maintained by ProMiles and our staff out of Pittsburgh.
Oh, perfect. Local to me. I can run down there and tell them to hurry up on my bridge analysis.
But they're
Uh,
developing the software. They're not
oh,
actually doing the bridge analysis.
okay. Uh, so for those of you that don't know, the SC&RA is Specialized Carrier and Rigging Association. Basically, any company that does uh, Well, all of your crane lifting and rigging operations will be a part of SCNRA, or just about all of them. And any company that really does oversized super loads, your big stuff like that, they're going to be a part of SCNRA. It is the go-to organization association for the kind of unique haulage that you would need for moving anything that is not going to fit under normal permitting guidelines. So a combine companies that haul agricultural might not be a member, but if you're hauling a 150,000-pound press base that's 16 foot wide, that kind of a hauler is probably a part of the SCNRA. And as such, having an expert and a company such as ProMiles and Mike Webb working on the permitting side of it is a huge, huge help for the industry. So, what were some of the main challenges that you, ProMiles, and SCNRA identified that really led to the creation behind the UPT 21 program?
I guess when you say the challenges, anytime you're dealing with government, in this case, state DOT government, things don't move very quickly. It takes a lot to turn that ship and get that ship headed in the right direction. Um, Lots of relationship building. The 30 years I've been attending the SCNRA symposium, usually held during February, it's been a great opportunity for me to meet both industry and state officials. February symposium is attended by a vast amount of the state DOT officials that are managing the permit departments, and the ability to get those relationships established gives you an opportunity to address issues you have and bring ideas and etc. to the state officials. But to me, that's been the most painful part of this 21-year journey at ProMiles is, when we landed Tex Pros in 2009, the Texas contract, I thought we were, fast track on our way to going across the nation. And, that first system took us 3 years to develop it. We actually launched in August of 2011. And many of these state systems, there is so much horsepower in the systems themselves. And you're having to work with the state GIS, the pavement departments, the engineering departments, the permit officials, coordinate all those efforts and building these routing systems and getting them to the point where they're accurate and reliable to issue these overdimensional permits, keeping the infrastructure and the traveling public safe. So
It's
I had
it's a
anything to
very
say it's trying to learn patience throughout this period that, you think you've got something that ought to be a domino effect, and 20 years later, we're halfway through the country.
yeah. And Texas is the most detail oriented on their permits. When they give you a permit, they're telling you every possible name of every road you're going to be on. And it's like sometimes it's like, okay, I just need to know turn right. And they'll tell you turn right on Texas route such and such. It could be this name, or this name. That's the names it'll carry along its path. So you have to like really work through reading their permits. Now,
That,
is there any plan to bring Texas into the permit route guidance software?
that's Texas is beta testing that. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with the QR codes that are on some of the permits, Illinois, Mississippi, uh, Montana, and I believe New Hampshire, or states that allow that QR code to be presented and downloaded into the driver's app. The in-cab navigation that we're bringing out second quarter this year is going to give you the ability to generate your own in-cab navigation route based upon that permitted approved route that you've gotten. So you'll be able to go in for a Texas permit, as you said, and put the waypoints, via points along your route, your turns, your rampings, and things of that nature, and build out that route that's going to give the driver the turn-by-turn directions. It's going to automatically or immediately notify them if they get off route. It's also going to give you the ability to put notes along that route. So let's say you've got to exit 318 to ramp that said bridge. You're able to have the communication spoken to the driver, much like you get in the other driving direction apps now, as you're approaching that. So 5 miles ahead, you're going to exit 318 to ramp this bridge, whatever message you want to put on that route. Also, like the center bridges or any other maneuver that you want to indicate as the driver's driving that route, to speak those words to them at intervals as those maneuvers are happening. So we're really excited about that. That's, to me, it's going to be game changing, and again, goes in the directions of making safety and protection of the infrastructure as well as the motoring public out there.
I think me and Daniel actually talked about something pretty similar to that about 4 months ago, Daniel?
Yeah, I didn't, not knowing that this was a piece of software you were coming down the pike. We were talking about how this is what we need to have developed for oversized. With what I do, so many of my loads are up towards the extreme end, super load, or some people know about super load, but not a lot will know about mega load permits that are the step above super load. And when you get into that permitting category, you get a lot of, you have to know every bridge, what you're going to need to slow down for, what you're going to need to slow down and center line, how many you need to center line. And we were discussing how there needs to be software that will identify those for the driver. Even to the point of Ohio, the way they have theirs is the bridges aren't on mile markers. They're on the county mile marker. On an interstate, they don't put up the county mile marker. So you have no idea where these bridges are. You have to try and track down, it's a crossing over this creek. Well, then you have to go through Google Maps and figure out, I got on here, I'm getting off here. Where is this creek that's crossing the interstate? And then that's the bridge I have to slow down for.
Right. Well, the exciting thing in our Trip Maker, which is part of the Permit Manager platform, you're going to be able to go in. It's Google-like maps with our restriction data nationwide in there, that you're able to plot that route out. You can use the satellite imagery, drill down to the road level and actually put your via points exactly where you want them and notify yourself on that trip prior to reaching that.
Now, is it possible, like at some point it might, because what we were discussing was you take a picture of the permit, it captures the data on that permit, the words, the letters, the characters, and it processes it inside of that system, and then it automatically generates the route for you. Is that something that you guys might consider doing in the future with it?
Honestly, I don't know if I've always dreamed that you ought to be able to take that state abbreviated route and put it into a map solution that would generate that route. But as you know from reading those permits, it's good information, but actually taking that data and attaching it to road segments to build out those trips,
it's difficult. Some of these permits are just hard to
don't
read.
know if we're going to see that in my lifetime. I'd like to believe technology is going to get there, but we've taken it as close as we can get it without the states pushing forward with doing this, the QR code like we've got on 4 states now. But again, much like the state system, that's taken years and years just to get 4 states to allow this to happen at this point.
And I will say, I think part of the issue that states need to work on their system is, so often most states, when you have to ramp a bridge, they will actually say get off, and a lot of times it'll say turn right and make an immediate left back onto the ramp, or because their system doesn't actually know how to tell us to get off and go straight across. It wants us to make a turn. And that's going to be somewhere where the states are going to have to themselves work on their software, their system, that it won't just try and make you turn when there isn't actually a turn.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So, um, so
I will say, I hope you're referring to our competitors and not the ProMile
oh,
systems.
ProMiles. Um, and as soon as I get a load that I'm going through Illinois, my first thing is as soon as I get the permit, I'm opening up the ProMiles permit route guidance app and I'm getting that QR code put in because um, my first experience with it was I had to take a 14.2 tall, 61-foot long load down into Chicago, and I had 5 pages for the route, just the routing, and being able to put that into GPS. I checked it the night prior, and it went turn by turn, and it had every single turn mapped out correctly. And it's like just having that GPS that I can keep my head up and my eyes looking around, and just let the GPS tell me, okay, in the next traffic light, turn right. That helped so much with alleviating the amount of stress of taking that size load down into Chicago.
I've often wondered with the lives you guys live out there and being dependent on that piece of paper to direct you. Trying to follow that and drive that load, as you're saying, it's just got to be a nail biter, especially if you've got all the traffic that you're going to contend with in a major metropolitan area such as Chicago.
Oh, it is. It's after using it that time, it became a point of mine that this needs to be something that all the states need to push for. It made the job so much safer. The whole move became so much safer because I could just have the radio on, and even to the point, at times it can be somewhat annoying when you're just driving on the interstate and it's telling you like in 34 miles you're going to take an exit.
Right.
But the fact that it is a priority, that it will override anything else you're listening to and make sure that you hear it, that was very important, so that it would constantly make sure I can hear that this is where I'm making a turn, this is where I'm doing this maneuver.
And
So
that's
for
exactly why we developed this new nationwide solution is we had so much feedback, but people were getting irritated because if I can do this here, why can't you do it in these other states? And
the states have to
again, it's
sign off
back
on it.
to getting the state approvals and the funding, etc., to make this happen. So
I've
that
had
led to us developing this nationwide solution that allows you, although it's going to be time consuming, there's no doubt, to go in there and plot a route for 4 or 5 states with
So,
lots of
yep.
maneuvers like that. But at the end of the day, now you've got that solution that's going to allow you to keep your eyes on the road and not have to worry about that paper permit.
so with that being said, what do you think the most significant barrier to harmonization is across state lines uh, for permitting? And are there any efforts underway to address these challenges?
The SCNRA constantly is promoting harmonization, and they've got the permit policy committee. John Mummert, uh, one of our team members, is on that committee now, or has been for years. John, uh, with his consulting company, also manages the SCNRA permit policy manual. So with that, and Stephen Todd from Illinois DOT, retired there, retired from SCNRA. He's executive VP of permitting at ProMiles. We've got Dan Wells, retired from Colorado, who's on the board at SCNRA this year, last year, I believe. And the immense
Yeah.
number of individuals in our company that have been in this industry for years, both on the state side and the developing these state systems, have really given us a lot to be proud of.
Now, I know we'll never truly get a unified axle and really dimensions uh, for permitting. There will always be your east of the Mississippi and west of the Mississippi. Um,
Infrastructure is so different on those sections of the country. It's
yeah, the east of the
different worlds.
Mississippi is so packed with people and so many old roads that were adapted to the interstate that they have different requirements. They have different restrictions. But do you see a point where we will see where it's basically if you are legal in one state east of the Mississippi, all the states would recognize that, and then if you're legal one state west, then all those states would recognize that.
I'd like to believe that's going to happen someday. But again, back to the different infrastructures, the different bridge designs, the different areas of the country, especially in the Northeast, you got all the low or lower vertical clearances compared to out west, where you're much wide open, or much more wide open, I should say. Um, there's just lots of complexities that go into these decisions, as well as the engineers that represent each of the states and their beliefs and practices. And the engineer in New Mexico, as an example, may be very different than the engineer in, let's say, Texas or Georgia, for that matter. So it's just different ideologies and principles, and um, obviously that's not my area of expertise. I over in the regulatory compliance side of the world, but just trying to make better tools to deal with these situations from state to state and make it easier for the industry to legalize or get your permits and safely move those large loads out there.
Yeah. So with that, the infrastructure, since you did touch on it, the infrastructure differences, has that been proving to be a big hurdle for you with getting the software built? How greatly different the infrastructure is? Like Florida's roads are built so much differently and their infrastructure is so much differently, and it's even theory behind what they're designing the weight capacity for compared to, say, Michigan.
No, I wouldn't say that's been a difficult scenario for us, because the software is the software. It's really a matter of the elements for those road segments in the GIS developer side of the equation that actually generates these routes. There's a restriction manager that the states use to manage restrictions and put restrictions on the database. And of course, ProMiles assists the states that we work with on those aspects. But it's more the actual infrastructure itself that's the bottleneck, as opposed to the software. So it's whatever the restrictions are on that road segment that's going to be driven by the overall dimensions of the load. It's going to find the most practical route within that jurisdiction based upon the rules they have behind their restrictions.
So have you have you noticed there seems to be an increase in the number of loads that are becoming categorized as superloads? Like, should states start to consider what they call a superload, whereas in the 80s and 90s, a superload could have been 150,000 pounds. Nowadays, with our technology, 150,000 pounds is more like that's just a big load.
It's interesting because as we've been going through our automation efforts, developing the ability to interact with these state systems, it's really been a head scratcher to me, because, as you said, the superloads used to be 150,000. You'd wait days to get those permits back then. Now they're still classified as superloads in many states, but the systems are able to actually self-issue them now, versus it getting sent over the bridge and sitting in there for 3 or 4 days.
So it's making it, the technology is making it easier on them.
I definitely agree with that.
Could are you seeing a change as we are seeing more steerable trailers and more steering technology come down? Are you seeing any kind of changes on your end with states preferring those trailers or giving like route changes, requesting to know what those trailers are?
Honestly, I really don't have much involvement in those type of discussions. Although I know that with the blades and everything else that's out there now, that you're having to use these turnable uh, axles, etc. It's I don't see that it's changing anything in our world per se. It, hopefully, is making it easier for you guys to get permits in the routes that you want by using this new equipment. But you'd probably be a better um,
But
advocate for or not advocate, but able to describe that much better than I am.
so for those that are coming into the heavy haul and those that aren't in it at all, there are trailers out there, kingpin steered trailers. You have a couple different philosophies for steerables, but kingpin steered is becoming the most common, the most popular, and it is where there's a wedge behind the kingpin that goes into the fifth wheel. So when the trailer or truck turns, the kingpin doesn't actually turn in your fifth wheel. What happens is there's a turntable on top of that with hydraulic arms. You have to set the pressure on it when you're straight, but as the trailer turns, the turntable turns, it compresses one hydraulic arm, extends the other, and that will actually steer the axles on the trailer. Um, I've got experience with those trailers. Uh, some states now are starting to put a small designator when they recognize the manufacturer of those trailers. Faymanville is a big manufacturer of them. Goldhofer is another one. Then we have Blade Trailers, and some U.S. companies are doing licensed builds of European designs as well, and Canadian companies are. But states are starting to recognize those trailers due to the fact that even though it might say the trailer is 90 feet long, with that kingpin steer capability, I still can drive that trailer as if for off tracking purposes, like it's a 53-foot trailer, van trailer with the tandems all the way back. Having to keep in mind your tail swing when you make the turns, but you don't need substantially more room to make the same turn. It just also takes a little bit of time and training to understand that when you make a turn, you're not making a squared turn, you're having to round the turn more because the trailer will kick out as it turns. But states are starting to recognize these trailers for the unique capabilities they bring.
That's
The
awesome.
downs the downside is they're heavy. Um, to see the states, ideally, seeing states being willing to permit kingpin steered trailers to 2, maybe 3,000 pounds more per axle. So most states will allow 20,000 per axle as a general rule of thumb. If we could see them go to 22 or 23,000, it would offset the added weight of that steering complexity, which the trailers are designed, they can handle that weight. The axles are rated for it. That little bit of additional capacity would give us a greater deal of putting more loads onto those trailers so that we can reduce the impact of the motoring public. For instance, the trailers that we used to use for pulling, say, a press base that weighs 190,000 pound press base, trailer we used to use for it would be 80 to 90,000 pounds higher tare weight and 100 foot longer. Every time we had to make a turn, we'd have to stop. A crew would get out. You'd have to unlock it, manually steer it around the turn, then stop traffic, lock everything back up, and drive. With these kingpin steered trailers, that maneuver is as easy as you just block off one extra lane and you make the turn. You don't need the extra people getting out. You don't need to stop traffic as much. You don't have people walking around in traffic chancing a vehicle versus pedestrian incident. Um, just overall makes the system safer. So that's why you're seeing these technologies, and that's why if we can give that difference on the lower end of those trailers, that weight difference, have that offset by slightly higher axle weights, it would put more equipment onto those trailers and make it less impact for the public and safer for the public.
That's outstanding.
The
I,
technology
I
and
learned something
oversight.
new today. I've always, been familiar with steerman and uh, that aspect of it. I didn't realize that there was actually something that made it that much more efficient and safer, as you just described there. Um,
It,
it
it's
certainly would be a good subject topic for the folks at SNRA to investigate, and their members are the ones that kind of push the direction of the organization and what they're lobbying for out there with the state agencies. So another good reason to
it
be a member of SNRA.
absolutely. We can't get anything done in the government by ourselves, but together we can have a voice that the government will hear.
There is
Will
strength
they
in
listen
numbers.
to it? That depends, but they will at least hear a voice. Um, so, do you believe that with the introduction of your systems and a lot of the technology that came out of that UPT 21, has it seemingly reduced the cost, or has the cost stayed level while it's reduced waiting times?
Are you talking about permit fees?
Yeah, like permit fees. Do you think it's made like brought permit fees down as the states don't have to have the manpower that they used to run a permitting office, or
I
just the
doubt
loss?
very seriously it's brought them down because a lot of those fees are legislatively mandated. So uh,
Yeah,
the state giving money back, is that going to happen?
probably
I
not.
wouldn't bet on it. So, but in the turnaround, you're getting the benefit that instead of waiting 5 days to get a permit, you can get it in a matter of minutes now. So I came into the industry when it was fax machines and you called in to order permits, and was nothing uncommon about sitting on hold for 4 hours to get to a permit agent at a state agency to place an order.
Yeah.
I know the state
Um,
never gave me no money back.
I think it's one of the states up in the Northeast. I think Vermont, maybe. They still do a lot of their stuff by fax.
They do. In fact, we recently were awarded the Vermont state contract. So we're currently developing the new system for Vermont, and hopefully in the near future, no longer going to be faxing into Vermont. You can be ordering permits online.
That'll be an absolute godsend for heavy haul. Um, I do not too infrequently. I take some large components up to Maine for a customer up there. So every time we have to get routed through Vermont, it's always I hope the permit's right the first time because I don't want to have to deal with this. But
Right.
hearing it's finally coming into they're joining the 21st century with getting rid of the fax machines is really good.
We're excited about that one as well.
So UPT 21's goal was to be done by 2021. What do you think the timeline is now for that?
I was on the SCNRA permit policy committee several years ago, and it's a continuous work in progress. The organization as a whole continues to push for harmonization across the country. Um, I almost probably would say it should be called UPT 2027 at this point. But, you know, I think it's going to be it's a work in progress. It's definitely improved a lot over the years, especially since I started attending in the earlier years. Um, and I have no doubt it will continue to improve. How far it goes and how close we get to harmonized is the $1 million question out there, I'm sure.
I would say it'll probably get close. It'll probably get to a point where it is east and west of the Mississippi. That dividing line is going to be the. I don't think we'll ever be able to get over that, just because infrastructure differences is so much. The infrastructure is so much older, and the population denser east of the Mississippi that you can't do a lot to change that.
And so expensive to, redesign and rebuild all these structures that are around the country. It's a nightmare. It sounds like just trying to maintain them and keeping them up to standard and ability to continue to handle these type of loads.
Yeah. So with that, I think we have a presentation that you're going to give us. And I think we will go to that, and then we will end this after this presentation. We'll end it with some closing thoughts on your end, just things you'd like to look forward to within the industry.
All right. Very good.
I will pull this up. Okay.
All right.
This is the ProMiles Oversized Overweight Specialized Fleet Solutions. And Mike Webb will walk us through some of this so that those of you that are kind of smaller companies or newer to the oversized overweight, you can get an idea of what it is Mike Webb's team of masterminds is going about in the shadows.
All right. Well, on this first screen here, the map up in the left-hand corner, the blue states represent the ProMiles state contracts that we have. Again, that map continues to turn blue. I've watched it go from one state to 24 now, and we've got a couple others in the hopper that hopefully we'll be announcing soon. And as I said earlier today, the technology that we've used or developed for these state agencies, we've now taken and utilized that technology to develop industry solutions. We initially started off working with Nova and Axis permits, sister companies. Nova is based out of Quebec and Axis based out of Florida. We're our first partners in the early development of Permit Manager. We also worked with several large nationwide carriers in the development and the research to take these solutions to the next level. A year ago, we partnered with Reliable Permit Solutions out of Los Angeles, and Coast to Coast has been on board for about a year and a half now as a partner. So they're using our technology to assist their customers in maintaining their permit service platforms for their customers. We also partnered with TQL last year from a freight broker's point to develop a product called Quote Manager that allows you to accurately quote permit fees, escort, police, bucket truck, etc., depending upon the type of load and the requirements for those jurisdictions, and to produce a quote that you can rely on that actually manages ton mile fees, and based upon the restrictions that we have in our restriction database and the dimensions of the load, it's going to route you and show you actual out of route miles from the route that you're having to take because of those over dimensions. A little bit at the bottom is talking about the in-cab navigation that we are in the process of developing and releasing as well.
It looks that in-cab navigation is quite similar to what you have with the ProMiles permit route guidance. It is a very clear, crisp picture that you can get on your screen for if you want to have a visual reference. Like I said, I like it for the audio side of it, having that turn by turn that I know is aligned to my permit. But that is a very good picture indication of what you get with the permit route guidance app that's already available for Android and iOS devices.
And the same development team that developed these for the 4 states that are taking advantage of that QR code are the same developers that have developed our nationwide solution. So there's going to be a lot of similarities in it, and we're certainly going to be looking forward to industry feedback and continue to improve our products as we go forward. Okay, this is talking about the quote manager that I was just speaking of, and As you can see on the screen there, much like our state systems, we now have a nationwide mapping solution, routing solution, that allows you to route uh, throughout the country based upon restrictions that we have a huge GIS team that manages for us. Um, it's not 100% complete yet. It's been a work in progress for past 4 or 5 years now. We're getting closer. We're getting better by the day. We're again, and I want to point this out with our restriction manager or a route manager. These are suggested routes. You always got to apply for the permit and get that state approved route that you're going to move on. So I don't want anybody to think they can come in here and generate a route and
Just go anywhere they
mitigate.
want.
So it's a tool to assist you. Um, Definitely an advantage for some of the route surveys that are being done. It gives the route surveyor an opportunity to generate a route based upon the restrictions that we have stored to at least get started on that route survey versus going through Google Maps and atlases and anything else they can get their hands on to build a starting point for the route survey. So there's a lot of advantages to the route manager. I just want to make sure that I'm clear that don't for a second think you can get in here and run a route and take off with that 16 high load. It's going to get you in trouble.
It's it is not the permit. It is just giving you an idea of this should get you in the ballpark of how to quote for that kind of a load.
Correct. And also the route that's generated, and again, this is kind of focused on the route manager and how that works. The routes that are generated as you're applying for permits, again, it's a suggested route. You're able to manipulate the route however you want to by plotting via points. It has you're able to drag the route and avoid a state if you want to stay out of the state due to regulations or, as you said, actual rules that prevent you from moving that load in that particular state. Um, anyway, it gets you that route uh, put into permit manager that can automatically be uploaded to the state system. It's either going to approve in their routing uh, program at the state, or it's going to that permit order will be there for you to log in and just the ability to adjust the route and complete that permit order. We also have a custom restriction manager as part of the permit manager platform. What this does is it allows you to go in and put your own custom restrictions that are only available to you or your company on top of our restrictions. The restriction manager and the route manager, it's also going to allow you to override restrictions. So let's say you've got hard restrictions at states and you've got soft restrictions at states. So the hard restrictions are going to be your vertical clearances and things of that nature, girders or whatever that you can't get moved. But you've got soft restrictions out there. They may have width restrictions or turning radius restrictions, but after route survey, you're able to actually get approval for that route. What this would allow you to do is you're putting in your permit request to the state is override a restriction that you have approved for the state route survey. You're able to actually going to be able to attach the route survey with your permit application, and it's going to communicate through the automation efforts to get those larger loads into the state systems.
Would that also include like time restrictions too in certain cities?
We are working curfews and things of that nature as well. But this would give you the ability, if you've got a curfew or you know of a curfew or you know a route that you want to avoid, ability to actually put this on the restriction manager database as your customer restrictions. And then when you start running routes in that area, it's going to navigate based upon those restrictions to give you the preferred route that you're looking for.
That's awesome. I like that.
And you can see down the sides of the screen there that there's multiple types of restrictions that you can set, or, from axle weights to length the heights, etc., that you can customize it as much as you like.
Even having the height, having the option of the unbuffered or buffered height, that's a good feature to have.
Okay, this is the piece that I've been most excited about for many years now that we've been working on. This is the Permit Manager platform. This is the piece that allows you through one application based upon the states of travel to generate one application, fill out one application, and submit it to multiple states. So let's say you got an 8-state travel, you got one application you fill out. It only asks you the information that's pertinent to those jurisdictions that you're traveling through and the type of permit you're trying to get. So everything that's on the screen, all your fields, that's the only thing that you need to enter to get those state permit applications. We've gone to great lengths because I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the permit systems, but much like the harmonization stuff we were talking about a few minutes ago, it's amazing to me after we've really dug into this how many different ways there are for a state to ask this exact same question. One state wants to call it a load description. One state wants to call it a commodity. Another state has a humongous pick list that you've got to drill down to find certain bits of information for that state system. So we've incorporated all of those type of fields and pick list, etc., into the permit manager solution. So when you're traveling through that jurisdiction, it knows what pick list to put up there for you, what field needs to be filled out, etc., to make the user experience, much easier. Instead of going to 8 different permit systems and typing in the same thing over and over again, you've typed it into Permit Manager once. The automation through auto upload takes that application and shoves it in all the states of that permit order.
That makes it a lot easier for people that work the permit departments.
And this here is the in-cab navigation that we were talking about. The app is in beta test right now with ProMiles. We're going to be getting some industry assistance in further beta testing it, hopefully by early second quarter, and then before the end of the second quarter, it's my hopes that we will have a product that we're ready to release nationwide.
I'm looking forward to that. It will be a great tool to add to the toolbox.
That
I believe
pretty
that is
much.
it. Yep.
There's the e-credentials that I was talking about earlier. Again, we've got fuel tax automation, fuel finder solutions for optimizing fuel purchases. Again, the fuel tax automation, we're able to take the GPS pings from the route and marry them up with the fuel purchases for that trip and automate the entire fuel tax portion for you.
So combining, just looking at all the options you have through here and the routing app, would it be something that would be, well, it'd be beneficial for the driver, but I don't know if it's a technology that is there yet to utilize based on the dimensions of the load that are entered to keep track of where similar sized loads have stopped for extended periods, like for a 10-hour break overnight, and then create a database in it that once you have your dimensions in, you can actually find out, like, okay, along this route, these are the places that other loads of this size have stopped. So I know it might be a 3-hour drive once I go past this point before I find somewhere that another load of this size has stopped. So I probably should stop here and get either fuel or use the restroom, or this might be where I want to stop early for the day.
That's a great question. We've in fact had many internal discussions about available parking and truck stop navigation for the larger loads and having turning radiuses and what's the height limit for getting to the fuel pumps, fuel islands, etc. And we're working towards solutions such as that. And I really like that idea what you just suggested. There's in our trip wizard, you're going to be able to save previous trips. So I believe you could probably take advantage of the custom restriction manager where you could add notes to certain road segments that you would be able to easily produce in that as you run that trip again, that would highlight or notify you that this is a area that we're able to park a load of this dimension in. And if not, I'm certainly sure that our team could find an easy mechanism to implement something such as that. I honestly hadn't even thought about that to that level, but that makes perfect sense.
I tell you,
Yeah,
Daniel is one of the smartest guys I know, man. I don't know where he comes up with all this stuff, but he's like Einstein in 2024. He's literally one of the smartest guys I know. Can do just about anything.
it's it's enough time being frustrated looking at Google Maps and trying to figure out, okay, I have 5 hours left to drive. Where on my route am I going to fit this? Maybe there, but that, and then you see like a Google pin drop where it's like, oh, there's a truck stop. That is still a field according to Google, so I don't know what I'm looking at for a truck stop.
Right.
Being able to just pull up on the map and go, okay, well, a load that was 3 inches narrower but 5 inches taller and 10 feet longer, they've had that size of a load sit there for 14 hours. Okay, well then that must be a truck stop. Whether or a area that I can fit this into, whether or not it's going to be convenient for other drivers, that's another topic. But it's at least something that in theory, I should be able to get my load into because somebody else has done a similar load in the same area.
Yeah, that's very intriguing. I'm going to take that back to our team, and I look forward to further discussing that with you in the future.
I look forward to maybe seeing that, make it a little easier on us rather than beating our head against a side of the truck trying to find something.
Just out of curiosity, what is the typical practice of deciding where you're going to stop? You've got your hours of service
Um,
you're dealing with, and then, like you said, the headache of trying to find a place I'm going to fit this load.
so we have hours of service, but then what we're really looking for is Um, typically, it's 2 to 3 hours before sunset or before we would hit our 11. So this time of the year, shorter days, we're not going to make our 11-hour driving window. So we'd be looking at 2 to 3 hours before sunset, try and get in that window so that we have a couple options. But then where we start with is way stations, rest areas. I've got I've got special pin drops for some states shut down rest areas that are old. They don't want to maintain them. But if you call the state, they'll open the fence and they'll let oversized pull in there and park.
Okay.
Nope, it's only going to be oversized. We all kind of watch out for each other and we'll line up because we all know we're going to be leaving about the same time in the
Right.
morning.
Right.
Um, but that then creates a bottleneck wherein if you're the last one in there, it's going to be hard to get, if you're dropping your trailer to go get fuel because you can't fuel with the load due to the size. Now you have to weave through the other loads and get out, and then you have to come back, get hooked back up, and then the states don't want you convoying, so you have to give several minutes between each vehicle, maybe 10, 15 minutes. Well, if you're number 5 or 6 in line, you're losing an hour and a half.
Right. Right. You're not getting out at daybreak anymore. You're getting back out on the road a couple hours later, probably.
Yeah, so it's one of those like it's the game you have to play. We do rest areas, way stations, then we'll start looking for truck stops. We know, um, and I-81, exit 205, Racine, Virginia, is the Petro. That is the place. If you're pulling oversized, if you're not going to make it out of Virginia on 81, that's where you stop. And then you'll just get the rest of the way. It doesn't matter if you have 2 more hours to drive, that is just the truck stop.
Right. I'm
That
going to
that
stop here, or I'm going to be in trouble 2 hours from now.
Yeah, all the other truck stops along the route, they're not bad, but that truck stop is just so large, and they've got a specific entrance for oversized loads around back.
Oh, nice.
They have really good parking. It's open lanes for you to drive through. It is set up perfect for oversized. So like then we look for truck stops like that we know we can get to or get into, and then we start to go with you know. Is there a wide spot on the road? Is there a gravel lot that, a spot there used to be a gas station? We'll pull in there and we'll park it at an empty gas station. Like some states, Maine, the one route that Maine brings us into the state on all the time, there's actually a wide spot where they want us to bring the load and drop it by the line. That's just, it's on a U.S. route. It's a side road, but they made it 24-foot wide. So when we're bringing our loads up, we can go way off the road and we're plenty safe. We can drop the load over there, run up the road and get fuel, and they'll come back. And if they need to do an inspection, they can. So then we start looking for things like that. But it's a process. It takes time. It takes moving Google Maps around, scouting out every inch of the route to try and find those locations.
That's amazing. My hat's off to you guys that are out there doing this. You're the experts. There's no doubt about it.
It's like I said, it's sometimes it's literally you're just sitting there pulling that. That's why I don't have hair up here. I pulled it all out trying to find a parking spot. One big load, I go from full head of hair to nothing, and then I have to start working on, give me some little loads. I need my hair back.
Time to grow it back out.
Yep.
Let's talking about our fuel finder product that allows you to get truck stop amenities. We are doing some things around that area that we were just discussing as far as having the turning radiuses and things of that nature that can be included in this to assist in trying to find truck stop parking that's capable for your loads. You're able to get fuel prices, amenities of the truck stops, etc. on the app. It's talking about the fuel tax automation again. That's where we're able to take the GPS pings and the fuel purchase data and put those together to automate the fuel tax filing, quarterly filings.
Makes it a lot simpler and easier for the companies.
Yes, sir.
Even if you're an owner operator, you're still a company first and foremost.
Right.
Wow, you have no shortage of partners here.
Right. No, we're very proud of our partnerships across the country and ELD providers, fuel card providers.
Samsara. Now that would be, since Samsara provides tablets to a lot of companies, working possibly with them, trying to work out a deal with them where if they're supplying a tablet ELD device for a company that does oversize, having some of your software pre-installed for the drivers and possibly opening it up, working with the fleets so that the drivers have that, their software would be able to access the internet to get the information it needs. That would be a good avenue to look at so that we have one device, one tablet device where everything is present, everything we need for the job, the ELD, the routing, all of that, all as one package.
We are definitely working towards that direction. And again, the recent agreement with Platform Science, there is directions for us heading in the future to incorporate some of the oversized overweight solutions to that device. And then, obviously there's some ELDs that allow you to put your own apps on the device. In that instance, you'd be able to take advantage of the apps that we have available. But Again, that's direction we're certainly headed in. Hopefully, the momentum will pick up and we will establish some of these solutions out there early this year. That's kind of showing you the overview of the fuel tax automation, how we take the GPS pings for the route and we take the fuel purchase from the fuel cards and marry those up together to ultimately generate your quarterly filings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Produces
Streamlining the fuel tax.
report that's ready to be signed and sent into the jurisdiction.
I believe that is it. Yep. And that is the end of the slideshow.
That was very insightful. I didn't know all that much about ProMiles until this, so I'm hoping that the audience can view that and learn much more about ProMiles, and let's make getting loads there safely a priority among all of our audience members, right?
Anybody has any questions, please reach out to me or reach out to our team. I can put you. I'm certainly not the fuel tax expert on our side, but I spend most of my day in the OSOW arena, which I prefer. But I've got a team of experts, or we have a team of experts that can certainly assist in the other product lines that we have.
I got a question for you, Mike. So we have a website. It's www.flatbed-safety.com. Would you be okay if we put your website or a link or something on our website so that if members come to our website or the audience comes to our website, they will more easily be able to find you guys or sign up for your services? Would that be something you'd be interested in doing?
Oh, absolutely. I would certainly appreciate that.
Okay, that works. We will have it up there as soon as possible. And again, from many drivers out there and companies, your oversized routing has been a life changer and godsend for this industry.
Well, thank you for that. I certainly appreciate that. And we have lots of plans of continuing to push this forward. And as always, looking for industry advice and directions and questions to make life easier for you guys out there. That's our goal.
Awesome. So once again, audience, that is Mike Webb. He is VP of the permitting technology for ProMiles. They are a fairly complete, I'd say probably one of the most complete on the market right now, software suite for anything from oversized to fuel tax and GPS guidance for semi-trucks. Check them out. I myself use them quite a bit on doing my various loads that I do that are very large, and it works. It's a great piece of technology that many drivers and pilot cars even swear by. And even the officers, the Illinois DOT loves to just be able to look up and go, oh, yeah, you're good because it gave me the green bar. You're en route. That means you've also got a permit that's valid. So that's all I want to see.
That makes it much quicker.
Yep. Final thought for the day. Remember, check your load securement. Do one load check, at least one in the first 50 miles of driving, and then one for every 3 hours or 150 miles thereafter. But don't skimp out on it and try and take it to the maximum for that. Do your load checks, drivers. It will change a life and save a life. Mm-hmm. Have a good day. Be safe.